So again, I would like to welcome South Carolina Realtors to zipForm Plus Basics Training. My name again is Laura, and it's my pleasure to be your host this afternoon, actually. A couple brief words about our webinar objectives before we jump into zipForm Plus. We're going to be taking a look at creating your zipForm Plus account if you have not already done so. We'll also look at your NAR Transaction Management Benefit and exactly what that means, exactly what that entails, rather. Then we'll be taking a quick tour of some areas of interest and toolbars on the website so that you know, on our corporate website, so that you know how to access any resources should you need to figure out how to do something inside of your zipForm Plus platform and don't want to call up to our customer care or email training. There are a ton of resources that are available to you that you can use in order to figure out exactly what processes you need to follow. We'll also be taking a look, as I mentioned, at profile settings, as well as your navigation bar, creating a new transaction using zipForm MLS Connect, which depends on your MLS. Not all MLSs offer zipForm MLS Connect. However, there are a handful that do. If you're wondering whether your MLS does, you can reach out to them and they'll be able to tell you whether or not they participate. But for those who do receive zipForm MLS Connect, I will be demoing that today. We'll also be talking a little bit about adding your forms that are afforded to you through your South Carolina Realtor State Library and whatever local or MLS library you happen to use, if that's also the case. And then finally, we'll wrap up today's session with taking a look at some of your form tools. So all of the necessary form editing tools you need in order to get your contracts executed. And that would include things like highlighting, striking out, even adding a photo to a document, which is kind of a cool feature that we have. All right, so we're going to begin today by signing into zipForm Plus. You are welcome if you are at your computer and have zipForm Plus on there. You're welcome to follow along with me, or you're more than welcome to also just watch me share my screen and absorb the information. So we're actually, before we get into zipForm Plus, going to start out on our website. Let's just move this over here. Now you can access our website by going to www.ziplogics.com, and here you'll have a number of different resources that you can access in order to, again, just figure out how to perform certain processes if you're unsure and as you're getting familiar with your zipForm Plus account. You'll notice right when you go to www.ziplogics.com, there's a huge icon on the front page that says use your NAR Transaction Management Benefit. It's almost impossible to miss. So you can go right here to our website and click on this icon, use your NAR Transaction Management Benefit. And you'll be transported to a products page where you can sign up. Now, disregard this if you've already set up your zipForm Plus account, but if you have not, you can do that here by clicking on Sign Up. And it's going to direct you to a page that will allow you to select, in this case, I am a realtor, and then select your association. So you would go all the way down to South Carolina, like so. And then choose your local association, and it will take you through the steps in order to get that new account created. It will ask for some basic information about you. After you've created it, it will send you a welcome email and you'll be able to sign into your zipForm Plus account. So it's going to give you those credentials. So that is how you would sign up for zipForm Plus if you do not already have your free account. If you already have your account set up, you don't need to worry about this portion, just showing anyone who does not how you can procure that account. All right, and this is also, as I mentioned, our corporate website. We do offer a number of different resources on here as you begin your zipForm Plus journey. You can access how-to videos from under support. You can also search our knowledge base. This has a number of how-to guides that will allow you to learn different features of zipForm Plus. And as I mentioned, we will be covering those features throughout this series over the next few months. You can also access live online training if you want to get ahead of the curve and sign up for some additional training. You can do that here. So a ton of resources right at your fingertips on www.ziplogics.com. All right. So once you have your account all set up, what you can do is visit www.zipformplus.com. So two different sites. We were just at www.ziplogics.com. That again is our corporate site. To sign into your ZipForm Plus account, you would go to www.zipformplus.com. And from here you can sign in. It will give you this standard sign-in screen, and once you receive that welcome email, or if you already have your credentials, you can simply type those in. I'm typing in my username and my password, and then just clicking sign in. And it's super easy to reset your password. If you forgot it, you can just click on forgot password and generate an email to yourself, and you can adjust that password if necessary. We're going to click sign in. This is going to transport us to the transactions home landing page. So this is the home page of our ZipForm Plus account. This is, for all intents and purposes, where all of your transactions live. And when we use the term transactions in ZipForm Plus, don't let it throw you. What it's really just referring to is a deal. And usually while we think of transactions as something that has gone through, been closed, been completed, in this case, transactions can be used a number of different ways. One is to consolidate information for a deal you might already have signed that agency agreement on and you're working with that client. And another option is to create transactions for prospects. So you may not necessarily be using those transactions if the deal falls through, but you can still create them so that you can streamline all of your information right inside of ZipForm Plus. We'll return to transactions in just a couple of moments. But before we do that, I want to draw your attention to the upper right-hand corner of our ZipForm Plus account here. You will see that there is a drop-down that says Me. If you click on that drop-down, this pop-out window will appear, and from here you can upload a photo of yourself if you feel inclined to do so. You can see I've uploaded a photo. That is not me, by the way, but just to give you an idea, it would say either add photo or change. If you've already had a photo, you just click on this hyperlink. And provided that you have a photo of yourself available and saved to your computer, you can just select it and open, and it will add that photo right in. So then you'll have that inside of your ZipForm Plus account. No one's really going to see it but you, but it just helps to add a touch of personalization so that you're more comfortable. You can see your face, can go through and kind of make the account more yours. From this drop-down menu, we're going to click on Profile and Settings. This is also where you would go when you want to sign out of your ZipForm Plus account. So that same drop-down that says Me, you can go to your profile settings of ZipForm Plus, or you can sign out. You can always tell, oops, sorry about that. You can always tell the type of account you have by just reading on the drop-down what the account type is. That should be denoted by those two asterisks here. You can see that this is an individual agent account. So your individual agent account is what is afforded to you through your member benefit through NAR. So when you pay those NAR member dues, what you're getting is this free account. ZipForm Plus has a number of features that are included in your base fee. One is the ZipForm Plus platform that we're working in right now. One is also transaction management. ZipForm Plus does have a built-in transaction management system. If you attend next month's training, we will be also covering that transaction management system. So again, we're going to build on what we're learning today. And through your individual agent account, you also have Zip Vault, and that is document storage. So all of our transaction information is stored for a certain set number of months or years, and those will be retained inside of ZipForm Plus per your Zip Vault benefit, which again is document cloud storage. We're going to click on Profile and Settings. This is going to take you to your profile settings inside of ZipForm Plus. Just a couple quick words about what you'll find here. First of all, you'll find the My Information area. This will automatically default just a little bit depending on the information you've already added into your account. You can feel free to come here and change things if you want to, like for example, if you change your last name, you can adjust that there. If you want to change your account email, you can also adjust that. Your phone, extension, if you have a fax number, something changes, you can come here and always adjust that. That will always be editable for you. Below my information is the email signature. This is going to be a signature that is included in all outbound notifications from zipForm Plus. And I want to stress the from zipForm Plus because this email signature, if you do set it up, is not going to be tied in any way, shape, or form to your outside email. So if you have Gmail or Yahoo, this is totally separate from that. It's not going to affect that signature. What this is simply going to do is add a quick signature tag at the end of your email if you send a document right out from zipForm Plus, and I'll show you how you would actually do that a little bit later. This email signature feature is actually kind of cool. I like this a lot. There are a number of different things that you can do with these standard form editing tools. You can adjust your font. You can adjust your formatting if you want to make something bigger. Heading 2, you can do heading 1. You can see it adjusts the size of that. And you can also adjust the color. You can see I picked this bright pink color, but you might want something a little bit more subtle, and you can achieve that by clicking again on that color icon, and you can switch that up. A question I get a lot is, can I add a logo to email signature? And absolutely, yes, you can. You can do that by clicking on the photo icon, which is like all the way to the right over here. You click on that and it's going to allow you to insert an image, and you would just choose a file and pull it from your computer. You can see that below I have inserted my company logo. So I have that, and that will be then attached to my email signature. Make sure that you check include in all outbound notifications, because if that is not checked, that email signature is really just going to sit there, honestly. It's not going to be attached to any documents you send out. So if you spend time creating a signature, do make sure that you check that box. If you make any changes in your profile and settings inside of zipForm Plus, and this is also true for really any adjustments you make inside of zipForm Plus, make sure that you always click Save. You can click that Save icon in the upper left-hand corner under About Me, and it gives you a pop-up which reads Profile Details Updated Successfully, and that lets you know that your changes have in fact been saved in the system. And I see that a few people have just joined us. Welcome. We actually just took a look at how to sign up for a zipForm Plus account, which you can do on our website at www.ziplogics.com. Now we're taking a look at our profile settings, then we're going to jump into creating a transaction. So for anyone who jumped on late, just getting you up to speed. Also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, today's session is recorded, so you're able to review that at your convenience after the session concludes. To the right of About Me is Sign In and Security. This is where, if you want to, you can add front-end security to your account. This would mean that you would receive a text message with a code every time you try to send in, either via SMS, or you could also receive an email, and you'll be prompted to put in that code before you're able to sign into zipForm Plus. Now, this is a benefit that we offer just for security purposes. Some people don't want to use it. They feel like it's cumbersome to type 2 things in to sign in. That's absolutely fine. But if security is something that you're concerned about or would just like to add an extra barrier of security, this is a great way to do it. And it's free security and account recovery information. You can add your mobile phone or email here, and you can set that up so that you can key in information before you're able to access your account. And that just prevents any possibility of hacking. So under sign-in information, you'll also see your username. This is the username that I typed in when I went to www.zipformplus.com. If I want to reset my password, I can do that at any time. If it's just been a while and I want to refresh my password, I can reset it here. Or maybe if I feel like my password may have been compromised, I can also sign right into zipForm Plus and reset it immediately. To the right of Sign-In and Security is Offices. This is simply going to show the information associated with your office. So for me, I have my office name, address, city, state, etc. And you can always go and adjust this too, much like About Me. All of these fields are editable. And also like About Me, make sure that if you make edits, you always click Save. That's going to update your information. One quick thing of note is you read here, the updated company information will only be applied to new transactions that are created. So if you update your company information, be sure to bear that in mind. It's only going to be reflected on your forms for transactions that you create now moving forward. All right. And to the right of offices is forms. This is going to show you the forms libraries you have available. You're going to have probably South Carolina Association of Realtors, which is this one right here. And then you may have a couple additional association or MLS libraries. I have a ton of libraries on here. You can just ignore that. That's because I use them all for training. You may have anywhere from 1 to 4 libraries depending on your association and the nuances of that. If you have a particular library you use more often, you can always click Organize, and you can drag and drop. And we'll actually see in just a moment how that is reflected inside of a transaction when you go to open your forms. You'll find that the library you stack on top is the one that's going to be displayed first and therefore the most accessible one. We can click Done Organizing. Make sure that you click on that before you go up and click Save, but you still need to click that Save button, so make sure you do that. To the right of forms is products. Very similar concept here. You're going to see all of the products that are afforded to you through zipForm Plus and through your subscription or membership. In your case, you may see Zip Vault and zipForm Plus, zipForm Base Service, and you may see a couple additional options or products here if those are offered to you through your local or if you've purchased those as a one-off. To the right of products is settings. We are going to be doing a webinar on e-signing in just a couple months. I believe that one is actually in May. So we're not going to be going over e-signing today, but if you do have any questions about e-signing, feel free to let me know in the question box. I'll be happy to email you once the webinar concludes and we can talk. Your e-signature options, though, it is important to know, are located under Settings. You have ZipLogix Digital Ink, which is an option for you to use. That is our in-house signing solution. You also have the option to integrate an outside DocuSign account. If you use DocuSign, you can link that outside account to zipForm Plus. So a couple different options there. There are a decent amount of account preferences here, from changing your default landing page to your template preferences, which is a feature of zipTMS. We're not going to be taking a look at that today, but you can also adjust the time interval for auto-saving transaction information. So sometimes I'll set that to 5. That just ensures that all of my transaction information is saving as I update it. You can change that to whatever you want. Up at the top, any changes, as always, make sure to click Save. And finally, last but not least, we're not going to be going into this last tab today. We're going to be stopping right here at Notification Settings. Notification settings are all defaulted on. This means that usually if you come here when you first establish your zipForm Plus account, it's going to be to turn one of those notification settings off. So tasks and checklists, again, more of a feature of zipTMS. We'll be covering that in a little bit more depth next month, but just the very high level overview. Tasks and checklists are a feature which allow you to kind of create an itemized checklist of actions that need to be performed before a deal can close. You can do that right inside of your transactions. And as I said, we'll hone in and focus a little bit more on that in next month's session. You also have transaction and document notifications, e-signature notifications, and share notifications, which is a feature of Collaborate, which we'll be covering at a later time. Any changes, always make sure to click Save. Again, under notification settings are all of your notifications that will either be sent in-app. So an in-app notification means that you'd receive something under this little bell icon up at the top. Right now I have nothing. I've cleared all of mine, but you would see a little red 1 appear if you get a notification up there. And then there are also email notifications, meaning that an email will be sent notifying you of something to whichever email you've entered in as part of your About Me account. So if we go back, you can see that there is an email evident here. So those notifications will be going to whichever email you have established. Deborah, you have asked, would you please go back over how to create a signature? Yes, absolutely. So underneath About Me, that first tab, you can create an email signature. Again, this is just a signature tag that is going to be added if you send a form directly out from zipForm Plus. So this isn't in any way part of e-signing or your email outside. It's just an email signature that will be attached to your documents. And you can customize this here. You can just type in whatever you want. You can see I've typed some information in, like so. So really easy to do. You just click and type. You can also add an icon, as I had shown a little bit earlier, just by clicking Insert Image. If you have a company logo you would like to add, you can do that, or a picture of yourself, you can do that as well. Up to the top, going to click Save. And really quick before our next objective, Lee, you have asked quickly, are tasks only sent only to us? Yes, so if you have an individual agent account, which most of you probably do, and you can always check that just by clicking on Me, and you'll see this is an individual agent. If you're in an individual agent account, tasks are only going to be sent to you. They're only going to be something that you yourself are privy to inside of your account. You can set up notifications to send tasks out to your clients or to cooperating agents, but we'll cover that a little bit more in our zipTMS webinar. All right. Okay, so we're going to leave profile settings. We're going to go up to transactions. And now we're back on the page that we landed in immediately after we signed into our zipForm Plus account. This is called your zipForm Plus Transactions Home Landing page. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is where you'll be able to view all of your transactions at a glance. Now, as I also mentioned, there are a couple different ways that you can utilize transactions. One is maybe to create a prospect. One is to create an active transaction where something's already been listed. This is totally up to you. Whatever makes sense to you in the context of your account, I would encourage you to use. If you want to create transactions for a prospect to consolidate paperwork, you can do that. If you would rather only create the transactions and spend the time doing that after that agency agreement is signed, that is absolutely fine as well. Before we create a new transaction, I just want to point out the navigation bar at the top of the zipForm Plus account. And this is this line or collection of icons with words. The one on the very left is called your agent dashboard. Your agent dashboard is going to populate based on data that goes into your transactions. This is yet again another feature of zipTMS. This is a lot of that auto-flowing functionality that you'll see within zipForm Plus. Our goal is to make it so that you don't have to key in the same information multiple times when a specific field requests it. So ideally in zipForm Plus, let's say I have a buyer. I'm working with a buyer. If I put in that buyer's name once, it's going to flow into everywhere in zipForm Plus that information needs to be. And we'll see that a little bit more when we start to fill out our forms. But the dashboard functions as one convenient hub, essentially, where all of your transaction information flows. This includes key transaction due dates, like a closing date or a listing expiration date. It also includes things like key monetary figures, like a listing price or a final purchase price. And it also includes transaction status information, such as if a transaction or deal is still active, or if it's already been closed, or I'll just zoom out a little bit more, if it has fallen through, which you can also see reflected here. All right. Your transactions, we already talked about this. We're going to circle back here in just a moment. Templates. Templates are time-saving packets of information that you can repurpose for multiple like transactions. I would strongly encourage you, if possible, to create a template as soon as possible because it will help a lot in terms of efficiency, adding forms to your transaction. I'll show you a little bit about how templates are reflected when we create a transaction. But essentially, to create a template, you can see I've done one here, a template for buyers. So if I'm working with a buyer, I'd probably be using very similar, if not the same forms every single time. Therefore, my template for buyers is one that I can apply to every single purchase transaction. So I've added forms that I know I'll be using, and now with just one click, I can add those to any transaction I want to. We won't be delving too deeply into templates today. However, next month, we're going to take a much more intricate look at what it means to have a template and also to create one. Tasks takes all of those itemized checklists and action to do items from inside of your transaction if you've added them, and it automatically consolidates them into this one area, which, much like the dashboard, functions as one convenient hub where you can access your information. We'll talk a little bit more about tasks next time. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I just want to give an overview of what exactly your account consists of before we start to get into some of the major functionality. You can integrate an outside calendar if you want. If you look at tasks and say, okay, but I already have everything that I want on my Outlook calendar or on my Google Calendar, you can feel free to integrate those calendars just by choosing the appropriate one, and it will sync them up. Currently, we do not have an iOS integration, although that is something that's in the backlog. We are working on that. So if you're an Apple user, you should be seeing at some point fairly soon down the road an iOS integration included so that you can sync up your calendar with your iPhone. To the right of tasks is contacts, and contacts functions very similarly to any address book or contacts that you'd have in your phone, just individuals or entities whom you contact on a regular basis. That could be, of course, a client, a cooperating agent, transaction coordinator, your broker, a service provider, whomever. You can create them by clicking on New and then adding their information in. Once you've keyed that information in, just click Save at the bottom and it will save your contacts like I have done for a number of mine right here. And then you can access those from inside zipForm Plus whenever you want to. Okay, you say, but what if I have contacts already, like the calendar integration? What if I have them on an outside cloud-based provider? Well, the integrations that we have for contacts include Google, Microsoft, so that would be like Outlook, Yahoo Contacts, and Top Producer. So if you have contacts stored in any of those, you can pull them in. I'll actually show you. I'm a big Gmail user, so I like to use my Google Contacts. And I'm already signed into my Gmail on this computer, so you can see it synced me right up. And it's showing me now all of the contacts in my Gmail. And this will stay for the remainder of my active session. If I would like to keep these contacts, I can always click Import to ZipLogix and select them all, or select specific ones and copy them over. All right. To the right of contacts is partners. These are simply entities or companies who we integrate with in order to provide a more seamless listing to closing experience. So maybe some companies that do things that zipForm Plus does not, like ordering a title or creating short videos for your clients. Around 70% of our partner integrations, and that's a rough estimate, but around 70% are free to our users. So feel free to come and check these out in your spare time. And then finally, there's the Shop tab. This allows you to add any additional products that aren't part of your member benefit. So if you have something you want to add, you can shop for it and you can add that product here. Like if you wanted to add e-signing or zipForm mobile, you can do that. And finally, on the end, we have Help. This directs you to a similar location that I showed earlier in the webinar, which is our website. And there you can access support material, live training. You can also activate in-app guided help. These are really essentially tool tips so that, and I'll just go back to transactions for this one. If I were to click on help and click in-app guided help, it's going to activate tool tips for that specific page, and it does so in the lower right-hand corner. If I click creating a new transaction, it's going to walk me step by step through this process. So as you're getting familiar with zipForm Plus, feel free to use that guided help feature. It's there for you. It's there to help get you comfortable with some of the processes you'll need to follow. So feel free to activate that at any time by simply going to help and clicking on in-app guided help. Alternately, you can just go to the lower right-hand corner and click guided help, and that's always available for you throughout zipForm Plus. All right, so let's return to our transactions page. I am going to make this a little bit bigger again. Hopefully everyone is able to see that pretty well. On our transactions home landing page, we're able to create a new transaction. And as I mentioned a couple times, there are different ways that you can create a transaction. In this case, I'll say I already have that agency agreement signed. I'm working with a buyer. So what I want to do is create a new purchase or offer. So to do that, I'm going to click on New. And side note, this is exactly the same process that you would use if you were creating a new listing transaction and working with a seller, or if you were creating a new lease or new lease listing, and that of course would be if you're working with a rental property. So it would be the same steps as we're going to look at today, but we do have to choose one. So in this case, we're going to be choosing new purchase or offer. And in our hypothetical scenario today, we are going to be working with a buyer. Once you click on your transaction type, your transaction information window is going to appear. This is where we're going to enter in the name of our transaction. Now, oops, how did that happen? Sorry about that. So I actually like to name my transactions after the property address. So I'm going to do that here. If you have a different naming convention that you prefer, you're welcome to use that. If it would be easier to identify transactions by a buyer name or a seller name, you can always call them that. One thing not to call them is transaction or deal, because if you do that and you sign in, obviously it's going to be very hard to differentiate one from the other. So make sure to give it a more specific name that's going to make sense to you and help you to easily find that. And as I mentioned, I prefer to name my transactions after the property address only because I am going to be using zipForm MLS Connect, and that information is going to pull in info from the property anyway. It's going to pull information in from an existing MLS listing. We're going to go down to property type. You can see that there are a number available. In this scenario, we are going to say that we're helping our buyer purchase a house, so we're going to click residential. And to circle back to templates for just a moment, you notice that when I clicked residential, templates were automatically applied. So once we save this transaction, we're going to see some documents in there already. And next month's session is going to go over a little bit more about a lot more actually, about how to create a template. But for now, just know that because I selected residential, there are two conditions or criteria that I needed in order for those templates to auto-apply. One was creating a purchase or offer, and one was establishing the property type as residential. You can create templates for whatever type of transaction and property type you want, but in my case, I created these templates for a residential purchase transaction, so when I'm working with a buyer. zipForm MLS Connect is available in the upper right-hand corner of this transaction information window. I mentioned a little bit earlier that zipForm MLS Connect is not part of your NAR Transaction Management Benefit through NAR. However, it may be part of your benefit through your MLS or local association. And you'll want to check with your local MLS and just see if they offer that feature before you go ahead and try to use it. What zipForm MLS Connect does is pulls information from an existing listing on your MLS or on any MLS, and it pulls it right in to your transaction. So it's actually connecting you with that MLS listing and pulling in the information that already exists there. And obviously this is particularly useful if, like in this scenario, you are working with a buyer, because you can pull in the listing, the information rather that the listing agent has already put up on the MLS, and it makes it super easy to start getting things filled out. So we're going to click on where it says MLS Connect to activate that. And I'm just going to actually choose an arbitrary MLS today. So I'm just choosing that. Your MLS name will automatically default to the top, so you shouldn't have to worry about selecting anything. MLS listing ID. So the necessary prerequisite is going to be to pull that listing ID from the MLS. So that would be like the property or source ID, and just key it in. So again, we just clicked on MLS Connect. We're keying in that listing ID, and you can check this box rather that says include property photo. And if a property photo is featured on the MLS listing, which usually they are, it will pull that in for you automatically. And we're going to click Find now and just wait a moment. Oops. Added an extra 0 in there, I think. And we're going to wait for just a moment while the system connects to the MLS listing. It's going to search and find it, and you can see right here it has pulled that information in. So now we have all of that information inside of our transaction at our disposal so that we don't have to go and try to hunt it down on the MLS or try to get in touch with the listing agent and pull all that information in. So that can be extremely handy for us in terms of a nice time-saving feature. And we're going to click Use Listing here. And you can see it pulled that nice property photo in as well as imported the property information. So hearkening back to what I was saying about naming your transaction, I did name it after the property address because now it does in fact match that property information that was pulled in from the MLS. Okay, so at the bottom, we're going to click Save. This is going to establish our brand new transaction. And once it is established, you will see if we go back, I'll just click back to list here, that it looks a lot like all of the other transactions we have here. Now we just created this, so it is automatically going to be reflected in the upper left-hand corner. Side note, if you don't prefer to look at your transactions in this grid view, which is what I use, you can go over to the right-hand side and you see this little icon that reads List View. Now by clicking on that, you can switch up to a list view where your most recently updated transaction will then be reflected at the top of the list as opposed to on the upper left side of the grid. So just the different way of looking at this aesthetically, it's totally up to you. You can switch back and forth and kind of figure out which one you are comfortable with. When you want to go back to the transaction, just click on it. That will open it right up. You'll notice once we've created this transaction that a number of subtabs are going to appear to us when we open it. So the reason that I like to bring these to your attention is because it starts to get a little bit confusing sometimes when we open up a transaction. We see these 7 subtabs, but then we also see our navigation bar at the top. So I'm going to try to clarify that by saying that your navigation bar, which is this dark blue one up here, is a universal or all-encompassing overview of your zipForm Plus account. That means if I click on transactions, I'm going to see all of my transactions. If I click on contacts, I'm going to see all of my contacts. Now, how this differs from these subtabs is that if I click on summary, I'm only going to see information pertinent to 140 North Gorham Street. If I were to click on parties, I'll only see parties pertinent to this transaction as opposed to going to contacts and seeing all of the contacts I've ever added into my zipForm Plus account. So just a little bit of difference there with respect to the information that you'll immediately see. So just know if you've opened up a transaction, you will see these 7 tabs. If you go back to the transactions home landing page, they will disappear. You click on the transaction and you will see them again. You can see that this transaction is somewhat content dense already just based on the information we pulled in from the MLS. So all of this property summary has automatically populated based on that information that was pulled in. Once you create a transaction, you can start to get a little bit more specific and kind of hone in on the details that are pertinent to that transaction in question. So for example, I know I'm working with the buyer. I know that buyer's name, so I'm going to click where it says buyer on the left here. And I'm going to add in our buyer's name, and we'll call him our friend Sam here. And we can continue to fill in information about Sam. When we're done, we can also click Save as Contact, and this serves a twofold purpose. Number one, we're adding Sam as a transaction party for 140 North Gorham Street. But what we're also doing is adding him as a universal contact. So Sam's information now is going to flow up to our Contacts tab once we click Save. So that Sam will be located inside of our transaction. But if we just travel up to Contacts at the top, if we ever need to access Sam's information again, we can now do that right here from our contacts. So Sam has been automatically saved there just by clicking on Save as Contact. We're going to go back to Transactions. Just open up that same transaction again. And we can also see, again, that Sam is reflected here as a specific transaction party. Just a really high-level overview of some of the information you'll find on your transaction summary. You can adjust your transaction status. They automatically default to active when you create them, but if it's a prospect and nothing has been signed yet, no agreement has been signed, you can switch it by clicking on the drop-down to prospect. Click yes, and that way you know that it's a prospect. It's not necessarily a deal that's all set or all ready to go through yet, but it's someone who you could potentially be working with. So you can identify those just by going back to your transactions home landing page. You can actually see, let's just refresh that this is a prospect now. So it's easy to tell exactly what your transactions are. Now, if you do start working with this person who's a prospect, you can just simply go up and change that back to an active transaction. You can also choose inactive, pending, and closed when it does close, or fell through if the prospect falls through. Now, this really just is more for your reference than anything else. It helps you just quickly identify if you need to pull reports at the end of the year, or you're trying to gather information for taxes. You can see exactly what transactions went through, how much you made, and exactly which ones fell through and you weren't able to close that deal. On the right-hand side, you'll see some various shortcuts. This is called our transaction summary launchpad. From here, you can add a document. You can also get into e-signing, which we'll cover in our May webinar, as I said. Share documents and email documents to transaction, fax documents, and apply template. Again, these are all features that we will cover in a future webinar. Whenever you create a transaction, if you scroll down the transaction summary, you may notice two things, a purchase summary and a listing summary. And these are going to be prioritized based on transaction type. So because I created a new purchase or offer, this purchase summary is going to appear at the top, with my listing summary then demoted to the bottom just because it's not my side of the deal. Now, if I had created a listing transaction, I'll just show you really quick. Let's find one of our listings. And this one is a listing here. If we open this and we scroll down, you see now that that listing summary appears on the top with the purchase summary then demoted to the bottom. So just the difference based on transaction type, the system takes that information and it applies it to make sure that your summary is giving you the most efficient information up at the top. To go through these tabs quickly, if you jump over to parties, you're going to see the same information that you entered in that parties launchpad. So we see our friend Sam here, our buyer, and we also see the listing broker information that was pulled in from the MLS listing. And there's some additional information that was pulled in through my template, which I applied. This is compartmentalized, so by clicking on buy side, you can see the individuals associated with your side of the deal versus sell side, the individuals or entities associated with the listing agent. And then also service providers, if you have a title officer or if you have home inspection or individuals who you work with on a regular basis for service providers, you can add them in right here. All right, to the right of parties is documents, and this is probably where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time within a transaction. This is where you're able to access those forms libraries. We looked a little bit earlier in our profile settings at our forms library, and we actually reordered them, if you recall. So when you want to access your forms or contracts you need to fill out, just go over to all forms on the right-hand side and click on that, and that is going to display right up at the top, your South Carolina library. It may also, as I mentioned, display libraries that are given to you through your local association or MLS. From here, you can access any forms that you need in order to execute the deal and get the contract signed. There are a number of different forms here. This library is actually pretty robust, so as you get familiar with it, if you're looking for something, a specific contract, and you can't find it, you can always search for a name or description. For example, if I key in the keyword buyer, it's going to filter out all of those forms that don't have the word buyer in the title. So then I can look and say, okay, exclusive agency, buyer agency contract, right to buy. Maybe I need a counter officer. Maybe an agreement to occupy prior to closing. Depending on what you need, you can add those in, and that filter feature allows you to quickly filter out what you may not want when you're looking for a specific form. For example, if you want to add a cover sheet, you can just type in cover and you'll see that there is both a 2-page and a 4-page cover sheet. I'm going to add one of those in. Now, the benefits of a cover sheet is that they contain almost all of the fields that you would be filling out in almost every single contract. So if we go and open this cover sheet through our South Carolina library, you can see that it's really easy to view and access the fields that we need to fill out. And a number of these are already filled out. You may be wondering why that is, considering that we've never opened this document before. The reason that these are filled out is based on entries that we have somehow procured in other areas of this transaction. For example, our buyer name. Because we entered Sam's name in the parties area, it's automatically flowed over here. Now, that workflow goes both ways, meaning that if I had typed Sam's name in here, it would automatically flow over to my buyer's area. For example, let's do this. Let's say there are 2 buyers, a husband and wife. We're going to put in our buyer 2 name here. Always make sure if you make entries in your forms to click Save. And if we click back and go over to Parties, we'll now see that Sandy is reflected here. So again, the goal is to only have to key in information one time, and it should populate everywhere else that requires that information. If we go back to Documents, let's actually open a different document. We were just working in this cover sheet. Let's open up this buyer's agreement. You can see that a lot of this is populated already. Again, now it has Sam and Sandy's information. So if you key it in once, it's going to be everywhere that requires that information. And the benefits really of a cover sheet, as I mentioned, is that it allows you to fill out all of the probably most necessary information quickly, and that's going to help you populate that information over. And you can start to fill in some of those fields, click Save, and that's going to flow over to your other documents. Now, if you would prefer to use a different form, you can do that as well. There's a quick way to make it kind of look like that cover sheet. If I were to open up this buyer's agreement again, and I click on the Fast Fill icon right at the top, this will remove all of my standard form language. This is going to allow me to better hone in on exactly what needs to be filled out here. Once I'm all set doing that, I can just click on Viewer, and that will return me to my standard view. I can print this form if I want to at any time. Anytime you open up a form, this set of form tools will appear at the top of the screen. You can view a form in full screen by clicking on full screen. Makes it a little bit bigger and easier to see. I like to fill out forms this way. It's just a lot easier to read exactly what information I'm filling in. You can print your forms by clicking on Print. You can even print multiple forms or a blank or sample if applicable. To the right of Print is Email. This is where that email signature we were looking at in your profile settings is going to come into play. By clicking Email inside of a form, you're actually emailing that form directly out to an individual. So I can put in information. Let's say that I'm emailing it over to myself. I can click Done, and it automatically gives you contact options. If you prefer just to type the email in, you can just do that by clicking in the field. You can also carbon copy people. I'm going to say buyer's occupancy agreement. You can also attach a fax cover sheet if you opt to fax it out as opposed to emailing. That just works with a fax number instead of an email. You can also copy yourself. In this case, that's a moot point because I am actually emailing this to myself. But were I emailing this to a different individual, I can copy myself just by clicking Copy Me. And then I just click Send. A couple other options that are available to you from your form tools are sticky notes. You can add a sticky note to a document that just kind of is a reminder for you. So by clicking New Note, you can just type something in. You can hide those notes at any time. if you want to. So just a feature which allows you to set quick little reminders for yourself. Once you've filled out a form, you can click preview. It will show you how that form will look if you send it out or if you print it out. So just a preview. Addenda. You can add addenda to your form by just clicking on addenda, add addendum, and you can type one in right here. And you can also click add clause to add that clause to your form. Spelling, you can spell check a form if you want to. Just be sure to bear in mind that sometimes we'll run across things that do not actually need to be spell checked, like last names. So just always take it with a grain of salt, but you can use that spell check feature similarly to how you would use it in a word processing system like Microsoft Word or Pages. Highlight. Highlight allows you to, let's actually go back to our standard view. Maybe we'll use a different document. It allows you to highlight some of this area. Once you drag your mouse across it, you just click highlight and it's actually going to highlight that information within your document. You can also strike out similarly just by highlighting that information with your with your mouse, and then you can click strike out and that will put a strike out through that information. And then finally, kind of a cool feature that a lot of people don't realize is there is adding a photo to your document. If you're sending something out, maybe you want to attach a property photo. You can do that by clicking on Photos, Attach Photo. And I have this kitchen and basement photo. Maybe I'll click on that, Open, and OK. And now that photo is going to be reflected. If I email this document out, it will actually show at the bottom of the document. So they'll be able to see it. Whoever you're sending it to will be able to see that photo within the actual form. So that's kind of cool as opposed to sending a photo attachment separately. You may have noticed there are a couple different other avenues to access MLS Connect. So if you forget to use MLS Connect when you create your transaction, you can always use it after the fact. You can click on MLS Connect at any time and pull in information. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the inception of your transaction. You can do it at a later time as well. All right, so that is pretty much going to wrap up today's session. I think, and I do thank everyone for joining me. We will be doing, again, this is the first part of a series, so we will be doing 10 more sessions covering different areas of zipForm Plus, including zipTMS transaction management, task items, e-signing, zipCRM, a number of different features that are available to you inside of zipForm Plus. John, you have asked, can you customize the forms so can you customize the forms so you only see those forms you use? Unfortunately, there is not a way to do that. There's not a way to filter out your library at this time. So the best advice I would give is just to use that search feature and kind of get familiar with those forms. I know they had talked about somewhere in the backlog kind of finding a way to flag forms, but I don't believe that that is something or a feature that has come to fruition yet. So my best advice right now would just be to use that search box to quickly locate the forms you're looking for. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I would love to answer any questions that anyone has after today's demo. So feel free to type those into the question box. Alternately, you can feel free to email us if you think of a question after, or if you don't feel comfortable asking it. You can email training@ziplogix.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you with an answer to any questions you may have. For account functionality questions, you can email us as well. If you have any issues with the functionality of your account, training@ziplogix.com is who you can email. If you have a troubleshooting issue, like there's some sort of technical issue or you get locked out of your account, feel free to contact our customer care line. Their number is 586-840-0140. And they are available to assist you Monday through Friday, 24 hours, as well as weekends and holidays, now 24 hours as well. So we are now open 24/7 to assist you should you need help with your zipForm Plus account. If you know that there's an additional product that's not part of your member benefit that you would like, you can email sales@ziplogics.com to get a quote. Their general line also is 866-627-4729. Our website is www.ziplogics.com, which we visited a little bit earlier in the session. Feel free to check that out for more information and support and training resources, as well as information on some of our other products. If you're on social media, we'd love to connect with you. You can like us on Facebook, connect with us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, or you can tag us on Instagram. So if you are on social media, again, we would love to connect with you. Be sure to check out our pages. Thanks so much to everyone who attended today. I do appreciate it. Again, today's session has been recorded, so you should receive a recording of the session within around 24 to 48 hours for you to review at your convenience. And you will receive that recording at the same email address with which you used to register for today's training. A couple more questions have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those. But again, thanks so much for joining me, and I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your day. Anne, you have asked if any agent moves to another company, how is that handled? So that's going to really be to the discretion of you yourself, the agent, or your agent and you, the broker. So it's really going to depend if that office has a specific best practice that they use, or if they're using a multi-user account, then the information can be exported and transferred. If you do move offices, you can always change your office information in your individual agent account, as I showed. Usually it's not that much of an issue if you do have an individual agent account, like the ones we were using today. You're going to run into a little bit more, not a huge amount, but a little bit more complexities if you're switching from a multi-user account. So I would really just check with your broker or office manager about how you would handle that. John, you have asked what limitations are there importing and exporting data from zipLogics? Really, the only limitations are, I can't really think of a ton, but I'll actually show you how you would do that. You can export all of your transaction information if you ever want to. We're going to go back to the transactions page actually to do that. You can see that there's an export icon. You can export these transactions all into a zipped file. You can also import information. Any transaction information you want to import, you can do that. However, I would be sure to check kind of with your office or with your brokerage, because if you are switching from a different solution to zipForm Plus, just make sure you check with them about the best and most efficient way to do that. You can always get in touch with our customer care desk as well. They cannot import or export your data, but they can walk you through how to do it. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you all again next month. Take care. Bye-bye.